The snow fell hard against the black pines of Montana, swallowing sound, blurring sight, and pressing down on the valley like a weight. Inside a small, weather-beaten log cabin at the edge of Flathead Lake, Daniel Cole stirred the pot of stew that simmered slowly on the wood stove. He was a single dad now, a man of routine and scars, a veteran who had once led men through deserts halfway across the world, now trying to lead a very different mission of raising his 8-year-old daughter, Emily, in the quiet and solitude of the mountains. The cabin was old, drafty, and far too small, but it was home. Every wall was hung with reminders of 2 live his military service, and Emily's crayons taped proudly next to his medals. That night, as the blizzard screamed against the roof, Daniel prayed the storm would spare them. Propane was low, the firewood was stacked but dwindling. Money, always scarce, had run thin by the 3rd week of the month. Then came the sound, not wolves, not the cracking of trees, but the low, uneven rumble of engines. 20 shadows in the snow. Daniel grabbed his coat, slipped his boots on, and opened the door. Snow blasted inside, stinging his face, but he could see the headlights cutting through the white, engines coughing against the cold. Motorcycles, 20 of them, sputtering and crawling up the dirt road that led nowhere but to his cabin. They came to a stop in the clearing, chrome and leather suddenly swallowed by the storm. The men who got off weren't kids. They were rough, broad-shouldered, with cuts on their vests that read Hell's Angels. Their breath smoked in the air as they tried to pull off frozen gloves. Daniel's instinct, honed by years of combat, screamed danger. But another instinct, older, deeper, spoke louder. They're freezing. Cabin's small, he shouted over the wind. But you'll die out here if you stay. The leader, a burly man with frost crusting his beard, looked at him for a long, hard moment. Then he nodded, and just like that, 20 outlaw bikers trudged into a veteran's cabin. 3. Breaking the ice. Inside, the cabin was cramped barely enough for Daniel and Emily, let alone 20 leather-clad strangers. Steam rose as the stove gave off precious warmth. The smell of stew filled the air. Emily peeked out from behind her father's leg, wide-eyed. One of the bikers, tall with a scar over his cheek, crouched low and pulled a little stuffed bear from his jacket pocket. "Lost my kid's toy strip," he muttered, handing it to her. "Reckon it belongs with someone brave." Emily smiled shyly, hugging the bear. The tension broke. The men spread out, taking off soaked gloves, boots, jackets. Daniel handed out blankets. The stew stretched thin, but somehow everyone ate. They told stories of the road, of loyalty, of the brothers they'd buried. Daniel, at first guarded, found himself nodding. These men lived by codes not unlike the ones he'd once lived by in uniform: loyalty, honor, sacrifice. By midnight, the cabin echoed with laughter, clinking mugs, and even Emily giggling as a biker taught her how to make shadow puppets against the fire. 4. The test. But not all was light. As the storm howled louder, Daniel overheard whispers. Some of the men spoke of debts, of enemies, of being hunted. One biker, twitchy and restless, eyed Daniel's medals on the wall. "Soldier boy, you ain't scared having us here?" he sneered. Daniel stood, calm but firm. "I fought in worse places than this storm, and I know men. You're cold, hungry, and tired. That makes us the same tonight." The room went quiet. Then the leader let out a low chuckle. "Fair enough, soldier." Respect had been earned. 5. The morning after. By dawn, the storm had passed. The bikers, grateful, helped chop more wood, patched a hole in the roof, and even fixed Daniel's old generator. Emily waved goodbye as they mounted their bikes. The leader, before leaving, placed a leather patch in Daniel's hand. "If you ever need us, brother, show this. Your family now." Daniel didn't know what to say. He only nodded. The engines roared, fading into the horizon. And just like that, they were gone. 6. The reckoning. 2 hours later, Daniel's cabin shook again. This time, it wasn't 20 bikes, it was 500. A sea of Hell's Angels cut through the valley, chrome glinting, engines deafening. They surrounded his cabin, row after row, leather vests flashing red and white. Daniel stepped outside, Emily clutching his hand, heart pounding. The leader from the night before rode forward, now flanked by hundreds. He pointed at Daniel. "This is the man who sheltered us. This is the man who gave us warmth when the world would have left us to freeze." The entire army of bikers raised their fists and roared. The sound shook the mountains. 7. Brotherhood. For hours, the cabin became a gathering place. They brought food, fuel, and supplies that would last Daniel and Emily the whole winter. Some repaired his roof. Others stacked wood. One even built Emily a snow fort so big she could climb it like a castle. Daniel, humbled, asked the leader why. The man's eyes softened. "Because once, long ago, a stranger saved one of us. That's our code. You shelter a brother, you shelter us all." 8. The tattoo. That evening, as the sun bled orange across the snow, the leader noticed the tattoo on Daniel's arm when his sleeve rolled up. A faded insignia, his old Marine unit. The man froze. Slowly, he tugged his own sleeve up. "The same insignia. We served the same ground," he whispered. "I lost my brother there." For a long moment, two men from two worlds, a one soldier, one outlaw, stood bound by something deeper than circumstance. 9. Legacy. When the bikers finally left, the valley was quiet again, but Daniel's life wasn't. His cabin was stocked, his woodpile high, his faith in humanity renewed. Emily asked him that night, "Daddy, were they bad guys?" Daniel thought of the scarred faces, the laughter, the snow fort, the roar of 500 voices united. He kissed her forehead. "No, sweetheart, just men who needed warmth. And sometimes, that's all it takes to remind us we're not so different." 10. The message. The story of the single dad veteran who sheltered 20 bikers spread like wildfire across the state. To some, it was unbelievable. To others, it was proof that kindness, even in the unlikeliest places, creates ripples bigger than we ever imagine. Daniel didn't do it for glory. He did it because, once, long ago, he too had been cold and lost, and someone had opened their door for him. And so the cabin in the valley became more than just a home. It became a symbol that even in storms, even in fear, compassion is the fire that keeps us alive.